Good morning. I'm Tim. I'm 63 years old, and I believe I've had an interesting life. And I'd like to share some of my thoughts and some of my story with you. I was worked construction, was a biker. Um, in the mid 90s, I felt like there's something more I should be doing. Started searching really hard. I started back in '88. I was in a motorcycle accident. Happened to be the fourth one. My wife was with me, and she was all right. I got tore up pretty good, and I didn't die, which really surprised me. We got hit by a 2.5 ton flatbed truck. We were passing her, and she made a left. Um, and then while I was in the hospital, I had a conscious out of body experience. I've always had an awareness, knowing things and seeing things, I guess, somehow in my mind. Um, so decided that, well, four of them, and I'm still alive. I've died twice at that time. I had broken most of the bones in my body. Had compound fractures of both legs at different times, each leg at different times. I broke my neck twice, but then it was only once. So I decided, well, maybe they're trying to tell me I need to be doing something different. And with the conscious out of body experience, I started reading books on out of body, different metaphysical things. I always believed in off-world beings, so I read more on that. I just immersed myself in a lot of different things, trying to figure out what was going on, metaphysical, spiritual, off-world, and a long time later, I realized that it's all connected. It's like us. It's all one. But uh, 91 or 92, I filed for disability. Shortly after filing for disability, I broke my neck for the second time, and I went in the house, slept on a waterbed that night, went to the hospital the next morning. They sent me home, told me I only jammed it. Went back to get my x-rays the following day, and they said, wait a minute, there's a shadow in there. And they re-x-rayed and said, oh, God, you can't move. You broke your neck. So that only added more to that. I felt I've got something I need to be doing, and I don't know what it is. So I continued reading and trying to figure things out, and nothing seemed to change. So by late 94, I was getting disillusioned because things didn't seem to be changing. Things seemed to be going the same way they'd always gone. So January of 95, I got another Harley and started riding again, but this time it was different. And three different times in my mind's eye during meditation and things. That's something else I really got into that I really liked was meditation. But I saw a motorcycle and I'd pick up a high-speed wobble and crash. And I saw this three different times. Well, what I didn't realize was what I was seeing was me. And I'm flying down the freeway 2 days before my 44th birthday. I'm going to go home, meet my wife and daughter so we can go out to dinner. And I'm going about 75 and I pick up a high-speed wobble with the front wheel and crash and go down. I remember thinking it was going to hurt. And when I come to in the hospital 3 weeks later, when I started to remember, I had I didn't know what happened. I asked my wife what happened this time, and she said that you went down on the freeway. And when she said that, then I remembered. Oh, that's right. And I remember the high speed wobble. I remember starting to go down. My mind pretty much goes blank after that, but I do remember seeing grass growing in the center of the freeway, in between where the concrete comes together. I guess as I went flying by, and I vaguely remember hearing the helicopter take off. So took me a while to get back from that one. But I busted the left side of my body again pretty good, and I broke my shin bone. And it took about a year and a half before they finally got it right, and they put in a piece of bone out of a cadaver and bolted that or screwed that in place. That's what's there now. But I never stopped walking. I still walked with it. I just had a real bad limp, and then when they put the stronger bone in there, it wasn't as bad. Um, Through my studies and things that I've read, things that I understand, we really do have angels. They are real. We have guides. We have teachers. And they can't do very much for us unless we ask. And when we ask, they step in and they'll do a lot of things for us. It's kind of strange. When I was sitting in the chair, I had all kinds of thoughts going through my mind of things I would talk about and things that I'd say. And I guess my nervousness has set in, and it's not going that way right now. This is about the fifth or sixth one I've made trying to get this first video out. I have about 5 other videos on the YouTube, which weren't as hard as this because I had an idea and I had something written down. This I'm trying to play off the cuff. So if anybody has anything that they'd like to ask, if you put it in the comment section, they'll give you something to talk about and give me a better idea of what I'm doing and what's going on. My granddaughters were over this weekend, and I've got YouTube on television now. I've got one of those new smart TVs. And going through YouTube, Daniel Brinkley was on there, so we watched Saved by the Light, which was, to me, a nice introduction for them into what I believe and what I understand. I've always talked about it and things, but I don't think I've ever really... I think this gave them more of an expanded concept of than what I've talked about, or they heard it from somebody else, and they saw what he was talking about, the changes that he made in his life. And hopefully it's opened the door and expanded their consciousness and their mind, which that's something that we do all the time. When we stop and talk to somebody and have a kind word for them, going through the grocery store, to just say hello to somebody, they look at you a little bit shocked, but they still got a smile on their face. What I like to do when I go into a grocery store before I go in is just take a few deep breaths, because that energizes our soul. A deep breath, we breathe all the time to keep the body going, but very rarely do we breathe for our spiritual selves. And an easy way to do it is just think about that God's love and energy permeates the universe, so it's all around us. And rather than just breathing in air, see that as a beautiful blue light, see it as a crystal clear, can't even see it, energy, however you'd like to place it into your mind. But as you take a breath, see all this energy coming in and going into the body and flowing all the way through the body. And as you exhale, you get rid of the old energy, the stale energy, and it's renewed in the universe. It's renewed in Mother Earth. But it's called conscious breathing. And you start doing that all the time. Good times practice it is when you're driving. But it raises your vibration. It helps elevate you. It connects us with the physical, with who we are, because that's the first thing we do when we're born, is we take a deep breath and then we start crying, mainly because we know that we're here and we're not home anymore. I was a hospice volunteer for about 13 years. I'm not doing it right now, in a wheelchair and stuff, so I gotta get back to walking, and I'll get back to doing that. But a lot of people say, oh, that's horrible, how can you be there with them as they're dying? No, it's something that's really beautiful. And on top of that, they're the lucky ones. They're getting out of here. They're going home. They're going to work. As soon as they leave the body, you're just surrounded with so much love, and there's no more pain. It's kind of like somebody just flipped a switch and it all went away, and it became beautiful and loving and caring. I've helped quite a few people cross over about 2 years after I started, I had a feeling that there was an energy around me. There was somebody there. So there was a radio call-in show with Philip Burley. He was a psychic. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. He's a psychic here in the Valley Channel, St. Germain. So I called the show and talked to him, and he started giving me a reading, and things he was giving me was very accurate. And then he started telling me about there's a tall, thin, elderly gentleman who stands beside me saying thank you. He says, do you know who this is? I'm sorry, I'm not getting anything. So I said, can you give me anything else? And he says he's continually saying thank you. And he's saying something about he walks the halls of hospice on the other side, continuing the work you do here. And as soon as he said the thank you in the hospice, I knew it was Vincent. He was one of my first hospice patients. He was in his 90s. And we used to sit together and watch television once a week for an hour or two. And we'd talk a little bit. And he'd be in his wheelchair, I'd be sitting in a chair. And one day I noticed he was kind of crying. And I asked him what was the matter. And he said he was afraid. And I took his hands and I told him, I said, no, you can't be afraid. Just realize you're going to the most beautiful place you can ever imagine. It's filled with love. You've had children. How could you take one of your children and push them away forever and just let them suffer? God loves us. It's what we've been told is a lie. And he started saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I was with him about another 2-3 weeks. And then he lapsed into a coma, and his family didn't feel that it was necessary for me to be around anymore. So he passed sometime later. But this is who came through. And then Philip says he walks the hall. He's telling me he walks the halls. It's one of those things that hit you in the heart. He says he walks the halls of hospice on the other side, continuing the work you do here. Which, that was really cool, fantastic. Well, I had a class with Frank Baranowski that night at GCC. It was part of the things I was doing, trying to open up and understand. This was probably around 2000, 2001. And we were having a couple of women come in, a couple of psychics come in, female psychics coming in from, I believe, St. Louis that night. So I told my guides and everybody, I said, okay, if what I've got is true, I'd like confirmation of it tonight. So I go to class that night, and the first hour goes by, and there's nothing. So I go outside and smoke a cigarette. I'm leaning against the wall, and I look up at the sky, and I proceed to do my rant because of getting suckered in and whatnot. And then Frank came out and said class was starting again. I went back in and sat down. And as soon as I sat down, one of the ladies came over and stood right in front of me and asked if she could enter my energy. And I told her yes. And she started telling me about this tall, thin, elderly gentleman that's standing behind me, saying thank you, and he walks the halls of hospice on the other side. And that's one of the stories that I tell my hospice patients. And as I'm talking to them and relating this story to them, you can see the energy change as they lose their fear. And I'll probably pick up somewhere around there next time. It's 14 minutes now, so I'm going to cut this one off because I guess I'm only allowed to have 15 minutes. And remember, in the end, only kindness matters. And as I saw on the Facebook today, kindness doesn't cost a damn thing, so spread that shit around. And lead with your heart. When you open your heart, you allow yourself to let energy in, but you also allow energy to go out to others. So, peace, love, and light. Till next time. Good night.